There are two really big conversations happening around customer experience right now. There's one conversation around customer experience and data privacy. We are seeing the demand for privacy-centric experiences explode in the legislative streams around the world. But then you've got another conversation happening at the same time around creating personalized experiences. When you think about it, personalization often requires companies to be in touch with contextual customer data, the type of data customers may not want to share. And that got me to thinking, there's a business case for both sides, but do we have a conflict? And if we do, then how can we expect the debate to unfold? I've been talking to colleagues and looking at business research and reading the academic literature, and I decided to ask some friends at SAP to sit down and talk with me about it. Will we have definitive answers? Probably not. But what we will do is ignite some thought around the business realities that are in front of us. Let's get started. Hi, everybody. Stephanie Toon here, and I'm here with my friends Shalini and Ratul from SAP. Thank you guys so much for joining us today on our debut episode of CX Unplugged Talks with SAP. So we're going to be diving into a conversation about privacy and personalization, privacy-centric experiences versus personalized experiences, and what are the pros and cons that we need to be prepared to talk about as CX practitioners at the senior leadership table. So let's dive in. We ready?
Yes, let's go.
All
Absolutely.
right. So first question is for Shalini. Let's just back up for a second and start at the beginning. What is marketing personalization? And if you're a customer experience practitioner like a chief customer officer or a VP of CX, for example, and you're practicing the discipline like voice of the customer, design, you're running client teams, governance, why should marketing personalization matter to you?
Yeah, Stephanie, it's an important topic for all organizations today. The choice for customers has never been greater. And not to mention, our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. I think we're all a little bit Zoom fatigued. So customers want the freedom of choice, they want convenience, they want transparency, and they want to be known as an individual. So, for brands to stand out, like how are you building those relationships? And it's really about delivering the right information at the right time in the right channels. But this is really only possible with highly personalized experiences. One of the things that we saw recently was 72% of consumers really will only engage with personalized marketing. And as consumers, we're using all types of channels, devices. We're going in-store, where we can go in-store. We're shopping online. We're using mobile apps. And we're also, as a marketer, we're gleaning this data from our consumers on how they're feeling, right? We have surveys and they can give us their feedback. And so with all these different channels, all this data from your consumer, how are you using it to really create those relationships in a consented way, maintaining privacy, but still delivering on expectations? Because at the end of the day, we want that personalized experiences. But at the same time, 86% of consumers say they're concerned about their data privacy. So while personalized marketing is super critical, it's really important that you're using data in a very transparent way.
That's right. Personalization leads to sales conversions, right? And no matter what size business you run, small, medium, large size business, we all rely on sales. And some personalization does require the use of contextual customer data. And that's where we're starting to hear this term CDP being more involved in the business conversation that's floating around now. So next question, I want to pivot to Ratul. Ratul, tell us a little bit more about CDP. What is it? Give us a plain language description of what it is and why it should matter to customer experience professionals, contact center leaders, and such that come into contact with customers.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having us, Stephanie. A CDP is, in layman's term, or a customer data platform, is that central location where a business stores all of their customer data, or the golden record, as you will, for a customer. And in a lot of businesses, they've had this information in the back office, but as Shalini illustrated, we are going not just physical retail, but the digital world, and digital is not just websites or cell phones, but it's this explosion of channels. We have location data, we've got behavioral data, we have all of this information, first-party data, second-party data, third-party data that exists within inside of an organization, and it needs to come together in a central place. And that's what a customer data platform is really designed to do, is to centralize that data. And then, of course, with the rise of data privacy regulations, we need to understand not just the consent of a person to use my data, like the opt-ins or unsubscribes, but really what is the purpose of that data that a business has? Is it contractual? Is it legal? Is it about the warranty? There are reasons why businesses need to keep customer data around. And then, of course, putting those two together helps you understand, and you as a business understand how to help attract customers and make sure you're personalizing the attraction phase of it, all the way through loyalty, making sure that you have this context. Not just, a lot of marketers will think I'm personalizing in the upfront piece of the equation, but there's this concept of the post-sale customer experience. And as Shalini illustrated, in the call center or through a survey mechanism, you're going to provide information. You're going to provide context back to the business that things are going well, things aren't going well. And that should feed the other conversations that you have through your mobile apps, in store, to allow the business to, one, help you, provide value, and make you feel that your relationship is important to them. And a customer data platform helps connect the dots.
Yeah, you mentioned location a minute ago. We know that new business platforms have been built on contextual data from geolocation, for example. Uber and Lyft have built brand new business models that in the last several years, where that geolocation data actually helps customers connect with riders, and it facilitates important kinds of communications between a business and its customers, like when you're going to get picked up. We all know that that's one of the most valuable things about getting an Uber or a Lyft. But also, we know this doesn't apply to every sector. But my next question is about, given where we are in the business world right now, because both of these conversations are really important, personalization and privacy. Are CX leaders walking into an eventual conflict at the leadership table? And how can they lock arms with the executives that they need to be partnered with, like CIOs and chief strategy officers and chief marketing officers, to prepare for those kinds of conversations? Is there possibly a debate looming? I want to start with Ratul on this question.
Debate and conflict are strong words, but I think at the end of the day, if the business believes that customers are important and are their path forward to success, the conversation flows around the objective, around the customer. But what is looming at the table is how they get there. And if you think about how we started, marketing personalization, what goes into a relationship? Well, a great relationship is one where, I know both of you, we've built it over time, we've exchanged more and more information. I'm a huge fan of Disney. I'm wearing the Disney t-shirt here. But that's information I've given you to use in our relationship. And the same thing goes for a business. They need to know why they have this data and how they're using it. Take GDPR, for example. This regulation allowed all of us to be able to query a company and ask, what data do you have on us? Basically, a digital service request is what it was called. And a lot of those requests go to legal because that's where they decided it to go. But if you think about the conversation that could be had at the executive table, marketing or customer experience could say, the best way to do this is, let's do it in the digital way. Let's create a portal. Let's create a pod of where we can put all of this customer data. When anyone wants to see what they have, we're very transparent with them on why we have it, we give them control over it, and we redefine the experiences we have going forward. What is the mindset shift that businesses need to have? Are this positive conversation? This is what those companies, those digital first companies, are doing. All of the businesses that we've seen are going, they're redefining what customer experience means to them, how they reach those end customers, how they reach their business partners. All of these things can be redefined to think about how they make things easier, how we do things in a better way, how we deliver value, how we bring it all together. And that's the conversation that needs to happen. How we get there, that's where the conflict will arise, because everyone has their opinions, because everything has a cost. But the reality is, if we really put the customer first, knowing who they are, how they want to be treated, we can then design programs and solutions to do exactly that.
Yeah, Shalini, what do you think? What's the best way to lock arms?
No, I mean, absolutely, right. So I'm a marketer, and the pandemic has really challenged us, right? We went from being able to see our customers in physical events and spaces, and now everything's gone digital. And how can we connect with them in a relevant way, in a protected way, in a consented way? And I think brands really need to understand and really use that data to understand their consumers when they want to be left alone, they want to have their personal space respected. That's where you're going to see ROI. And with so many consumers being unsure where they can trust brands with their data, it's important that you're using it in the way that they want, not to be forceful or creepy, because that can lead to negative sentiment, which they will share on social and give back in surveys and reviews. But where you can really connect, like all of us during the pandemic, I'm doing a lot of binge watching on Netflix, and sure, I might have, watched the Tiger King series, but I don't really want that to be known on social media, right? That's my own, that's my own information, and I don't really want people to know that I kind of, had a secret connection there. But I don't mind if I'm on the Netflix streaming service and they're actually offering me recommendations. What I don't want to see is my data on social, right? And so I really think it's about how are you using the data in a way a customer wants and in a consented way. We had a customer when stores closed during the pandemic and shopping shifted to online. This design house and fashion boutique wondered how can they have their personal stylist still be at the forefront of their customer experience. And what they did was they replicated based on buying patterns and behaviors. And with their loyal customers, they were able to replicate that one-to-one in-store experience with using the data in a way in an online world, right? And I think that's what you really have to do is you have to be really transparent about the data, to be helpful, right? To be helpful in the right moment. Like when I shop and I'm looking at something on a site, I don't want to see it in an ad later, right? I don't mind seeing it in the context of my search. And I think that's how you can really create those connections and that relevancy, and you can nurture your customer rather than sell to them, right? This will result in better relationships between the brands and consumers, but it'll also help to improve customer loyalty.
You said one of my favorite phrases a minute ago, don't be creepy.
Yeah.
One of my favorite phrases in customer experience. And that kind of leads us into our final question. And that is, okay, how far can brands go in using contextual customer data in personalizing experiences? And does that vary by industry or sector? I want to give Shalini the first.
Yeah, I think where brands, if they can be helpful and help a customer solve a challenge or a problem or something that they're searching on to make it easier, to make them more productive, make that buying experience, make that connection easier for your consumer, right? That's really where you're going to create the connection, because there are boundaries. Like we've already talked about boundaries. We need to be transparent. We need to be secure. We want to make it productive. It costs 5 times more for a brand to attract a new customer than it does to retain one, right? So trust ends up being the currency of your business. And you need to put the customer in charge of their experience. They should lean towards what they're wanting to do, what they're trying to solve, and be helpful. Because as we know, customers can be won or lost in an instant. And so it's really about creating that connection, that personalized experience in the context of what they're trying to do, and being really thoughtful about that approach.
Excellent. Okay, Ratul, last word.
For me, they can make this change. And I think the difference between the price somebody that they use to build the product to what they sell, that's the brand. That's the value that the brand delivers to things. And when a brand uses the data in a trust-filled way, when they design experience that are thoughtful in a value exchange, that difference gets bigger. And we all know brands that we love. We all have brands that we expect to continue to deliver and know us. And every company can actually do that. Can they do it at the same levels of some of the companies we've mentioned, maybe not, but they can all do it to build relationships with their customers, their segments. They can understand them better and constantly look for ways to improve. And it does come down to trust. It comes down to knowing your customer. It comes down to having that customer data in the context together with all of that information and making sure that you are listening to all of the signals that you have and moving them to the appropriate systems and solutions so that you can bridge the physical and digital world. As Shalini said, we went very digital, and we've helped companies do that. But if you think about the years that you spent going to the corner store, if all of that information somehow appeared in the online world, you might be taken aback for a moment. And that's where companies have the way to, as we talked about, conflict or locking arms, legal and marketing and data privacy can come together and craft new policies on why are you collecting this data? How am I going to use it? Be clear. Don't just say I'm using your data for personalization, because that really doesn't tell anybody anything. Help them understand, look, it's going to be to craft offers. It's going to be to help us know who you are and how you're feeling so that we can understand how best to talk to you. Those are things, if you humanize the policies, if you humanize the reasons why you're doing things, once again, that's the difference between just getting sticker price and charging more. That's the brand, that's the value, that's what we all want. And I think at the end of the day, we're all having a little Zoom fatigue, but we're all having just, fatigue with people mistreating our data. And at the end of the day, I think we want to see that change. It's shifting. We see policies across the globe doing exactly that. And that's why, everybody has to come to the table to put the customer first.
And I think it's also a fine line of how do you create that intimacy in a digital world? How do you replicate the relationship you can create when you're with someone in person, right? There's a fine line, because you can't extend past the same boundaries as you would if as you're with somebody in person. And I think all companies are struggling today to how do you break through the noise? I mean, there's so much activity on digital, social, emails. How are you getting the attention of your customer? And so that personalization factor becomes key, but within boundaries. I think that's the key. And we got to find the secret process to success out of all this.
Excellent. Shalini, Ratul, thank you so much for a fantastic conversation on the privacy personalization paradox and for being our guest on the debut episode of CX Unplugged Talks. Thank you all.
Thank you
for having us. Bye.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.